evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Duncan, your host and creator of the TXK State of Mind podcast. Man, can you believe it? We are now on season 2. This season, we're going to continue to bring you all the great content that we brought you last season, but with a twist. We're going to be branching out and going across the country and connecting with some past residents who are making a big impact on the communities in which they live. On tonight, we have a very special guest. I'm proud to say we have one of our very own, a 1995 graduate of Texas High School, Mr. Shane Wilkinson. Shane, welcome to the stage.
Thanks, Jeremy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, glad to do it, for sure.
Yeah, so I wanted to give people a chance to kind of learn about some of the people who grew up in town, Texarkana, whether it be on the Arkansas side or the Texas side, that are now really doing great things in their professions, their jobs, to give people inspiration, but also see that Texarkana is producing some really quality people that are making a positive impact throughout the country and throughout the world. So tonight, I want to give you a chance to come on and kind of talk about your experiences through your profession and how you growing up in Texarkana have shaped where you are today. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in Bentonville, Arkansas now, and I have lived here ever since I graduated law school, basically since 2002. So I've lived here 20-something years, longer than I ever lived in Texarkana at this point, right? Yes. Which is kind of crazy. So, and so that's in Northwest Arkansas. I graduated law school in 2002. I went straight through undergrad, then straight to law school. I never really liked school, so I wanted to get it all over with. So I just cruised through and got my first job here, which is where I wanted to work, in the prosecutor's office in Benton County, Arkansas, in 2002. Okay. And I've been here ever since.
So what inspired you to choose criminal law, criminal defense law as your profession?
Well, at first, I didn't want to do criminal defense. I wanted to be a prosecutor, and that's what I set out to do. And that's what I just, that's just what I did. I was lucky enough to get that first job. And so, Jeremy, I wanted to be a lawyer when I was in junior high. I told people that's what I was going to do.
Right.
And luckily that's what happened. So, I went in law school. About my second year, I decided I better do something that prepared me more for being a trial lawyer. So I tried out for the trial team. They pick 4 people to travel and represent the University of Arkansas, and you go compete. And so I did that my last year and got picked for that. And that was really a big advantage for me coming out of school as far as being in the courtroom. It's like I had, even though it was fake, I had a lot of experience, even though it was fake experience before I started, which gave me a big advantage.
Right. So when growing up in Texarkana, you talked about that was something that you always wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I know my first introduction to you came from in middle school. So yeah. I know you were always a professional guy.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I always noticed you. So who were some of the people or influences in Texarkana that kind of help you mold or move forward with the goal that you want to be as an attorney?
I always thought we had a pretty good education. Right. You and I went to Pine Street together, or some people called it Crime Street back then. Right. I don't know if they still do. Right. Although I guess it's torn down now. And then Texas High, we had a lot of opportunities there for a public school, I think. And so, I had a lot of good teachers. If I had to nail down like a favorite teacher, though, it'd be hard for me to get past Mr. Littman.
Yeah, Mr. Littman, that was my guy.
I thought he was so good and so engaging, and he let you have adult discussions, even though we weren't adults in the room, and I think that's good. And I think growing up in Texarkana too, it's kind of a blue collar town, I guess. Which I liked. And I mean, I think that's good in the sense that, even at Pine Street. So Pine Street kind of had a reputation for being kind of rough, right? But I think if you look at the demographics at Texas High or Pine Street, you had people from really like kind of rich backgrounds mixed with people in real poverty,
right?
Like real poverty, and And I think being exposed to those two spectrums and everything in between is helpful to somebody when you move on in life. I think it's good to be able to connect with people no matter where they're from and what their background is.
Yeah, because you have that balance.
Yeah.
We have that balance, and you're right in your assessment of the type of teachers, administrators that we were connected to, especially coming out of Pine Street with Mr. Moore, and then we had Miss Phillips, Robert's mom.
Yeah.
Miss Marlowe, of course, is student council.
Yeah.
So she was a big motivating factor in my life as well, was spurred me on, get me involved in student government and everything. But when you look at the overall challenges that you have to experience in your profession, how do you go about balancing any of those ethical challenges that you may have with defending particular clients, if they may be guilty, or how do you go about balancing that with being able to say, I'm here to serve your need, but also make sure that we're doing the right thing? So how do you balance your role as a criminal defense attorney?
Well, for one, there's rules that
Yeah,
you have to go by. There's attorney ethic rules, and I actually just got appointed to a 6-year term starting in January this year to the Office of Professional Conduct. So the Arkansas Supreme Court appoints lawyers across the state to. It's basically an ethics board. So I'm on the panel. There's 4 panels. I'm on one of the panels that hears ethical concerns and trials.
right,
So if a lawyer does commit an ethical violation, they go before us and they get to, it's kind of like a mini trial, or
right,
they can be sanctioned, they can be disbarred, and there's a lot of different things. So that's something I take very seriously.
right,
Because I think this is true in any profession. Your credibility is something you have to carry forward from, whether it be from case to case or day to day.
right,
And that's doing things the right way and the honest way is very important. I don't care what you do, but lawyers don't have a good reputation for any of those things. Um, that's the truth. But and some lawyers aren't ethical, but the good ones are. Every good one I know is.
right. And I know in researching your background, and I know the Shane from Texarkana, but in researching your background, I know it talked about how you go around and you will talk to new and up and coming lawyers about the profession. So, what are some of the things that you speak with them about, or some things that you can maybe impart in maybe a person that takes in Texarkana that's wanting to pursue the same profession that you're doing right now? What kind of advice would you give that person?
If you're in high school or something, I think it's hard. I mean, I don't think people that just quote like to argue necessarily makes, that's what a lot of people think when they're kids. Oh, I like to argue. I need to be a lawyer.
Yeah,
It's not really like that. Although the profession is a little bit more adversarial than it generally needs to be.
right,
I may be, I don't have a problem with conflict with people. Maybe I did like to argue growing up, still do. So, but I don't think that's why you should do it.
right,
It's a big commitment to be a lawyer as far as education, and particularly now with how expensive law school or school is, period, right?
right,
If I have a kid, I didn't know anybody like this to talk to when I was growing up. I didn't know lawyers really. And so I have people cold email me. Yesterday, some kid emailed me and said, "Hey, I'd love to." And I said, "I'll spend an hour with you. Just come in and talk." The first thing I ask them is, particularly if they're undergrad and if they're going to go to law school, is, "Are your parents paying for it?"
right.
And if they say yes, I'm like, "Yeah, you should do it because you got nothing to lose." Now, if they're not, let me talk to you about, how much it costs and what that looks like too, because I think that's a big part of it. Go ahead.
Yeah, you go ahead. So, and on that note, when you're looking at the overall cost of the profession, the amount of time that you have to put in to uh, become a lawyer, from the studying, going into pursuing your Juris D, and then being able to pass the bar,
Hmm.
what are the overall benefits of that profession once it's done? I know you got the career. A lot of people think they watch Law and Order, or they watch these law shows and they're watching CSI and they think, oh, I'm going to be a lawyer and I'm going to make bukus of money.
Yeah.
Um,
So a lot of people don't make a lot of money. That's the truth. And I do trial work.
right,
So, I am one of the, I guess, maybe one of the kind of lawyers you sort of see on TV, although
Right.
none of us are as good looking as the people on TV.
Right.
But I do think that most people that graduate law school, fast forward 5 years or particularly 10 years, very low percentage of people are actually doing trial work like that.
Right.
So a lot of people end up in especially here in Walmart and corporate Tyson, stuff like that. And so that's not what people think of as being a lawyer, but a lot of people end up in the corporate world as lawyers or contract lawyers or work for a firm. I deal with real people every day and go to court like several days a week and have jury trials and stuff like that. And there is a subsection of lawyers that do that, but I would say it's pretty small.
Right. And we talked about the different type of people that you deal with, the different backgrounds. So how do you go about building that level of trust or that rapport with your clients, especially those who may be a little bit skeptical or fearful of the legal system? Because you're dealing with all types of people, like you said, from the higher echelons to people that may just be living on the borderline of poverty.
Yeah, so when I was a prosecutor, and I was the chief deputy prosecutor of Benton County for a while, and you deal with whoever comes in your office, and that's all types of folks.
Right.
And if you're dealing with a victim of a crime, you don't get to pick your victims as a prosecutor either. Sometimes they're, I've got long-lasting relationships with some of them, and sometimes I couldn't wait to see them go. Depending on what we were dealing with, but I think that just being honest and straightforward and is the best policy. If you just tell people the truth, that resonates over time, because then everybody else says, well, you can trust this guy.
Right.
Even if I disagree with him, I know that he's never going to lie to me. Right. I think that's really important.
And I think that's the same thing that for my profession.
Yeah.
I deal with a population of people that they fought for the country, and all they're trying to get is resources to help them rebuild their lives. So it's always helpful for us.
Sure.
And I always talk to my counselors and my specialists to be honest with them, be upfront with them.
Yeah.
Let them know what they're able to do, what they can't do, and how you're going to be able to assist them. So when you think about all the different cases that you've gone through, could you share a case that had a significant impact on you and maybe what lessons you learned from that?
It'd be hard to single one out, Jeremy. I have handled a lot of really high profile cases that's made national news and stuff. I've represented professional athletes, a lot of them, not a lot, but a handful. I've represented a lot of judges, lawyers, politicians. I've done some political corruption cases. I do federal white collar stuff from time to time as well.
Mm-hmm.
I've done so much, and I've dealt with all types of people. But I would say there was a particular case early in my career. I tried a rape case as a prosecutor that involved a child against one of the better lawyers in the state of Arkansas, still is. And I won it. I was like 26 years old. You know what I mean?
Right.
I won it. And that was a big case to me because I was like the young kid and I won it against this big time lawyer. Yeah. And so that one made a big impact on me because it gave me a lot of instant credibility that I don't know if I deserved it or not, but that one will always be important to me. And I still have a little note that the girl wrote me in my office to this day. As a defense lawyer, and I've got, man, I literally have 20, 30, 40 of these kind of stories or more. As a defense lawyer, I don't know. I recently represented a guy named Rocky Dodson that was arrested. He was a principal and a coach at a high school in Arkansas, was arrested for murder of his wife. And I took one look at the file and was like, I don't think he did it. And turns out I was right. And they ended up dropping the charges. But when you get arrested for murder, most people always will think you did it.
Right.
So, and I think I mentioned this to you that I'm actually with a buddy of mine. We're going to start a podcast, and that's the first case we're going to feature. And the point of the podcast is, even if you're exonerated or they drop the charges or whatever, how it affects your life, not just your life, but everybody's life, including, the alleged victims and stuff like that. So, these most of the time when people come to my office, they are very much having the worst day of their life.
Right.
Like it's a, you know, they never thought they were going to see me. They never thought they were going to meet me, yet here they are.
Right.
And so I deal with people at some pretty tough times in their lives and their families.
And when dealing with those tough times, how do you go about handling the potential emotional or psychological stress that comes with defending clients in those high stake cases? Because I know you're dealing with a lot of stuff. You're trying to make sure you got all of their briefs written correctly. You got to have all your witnesses in place.
Yeah.
But that comes with a lot of extra stuff that you have to. How do you go about dealing with that?
I'm used to it,
Right.
but it's not for everybody. I tell
Right.
people that all the time. I'm like, this is not. I don't recommend it for it's not for the meek. This job is not for the meek. That's for sure. You have to be a very strange combination of empathetic and aggressive.
Right.
You have to really, to do your job right, you have to have empathy for people in their situations, but you also have to be able to be aggressive when the time is right. And if either one of those isn't sincere, I think people can smell it on you and they know it.
Right.
And you have to not be scared. Trying a jury trial is a lot of lawyers just are kind of scared to do it. And so you have to be able to, go in there and just have just not be scared to back down.
Right. I know that was the case for me when I first started out with within the VA system. I would have to go out to a lot of different places. I was in everywhere from Harrison to Mena, and then going in and meeting with people off the grid, trying to get them services and letting them see that, hey, I'm here to help.
Yeah.
Build that rapport so that I can be able to assist them with things they need. So I can see that playing a big role as your role as an attorney, being able to get them comfortable enough where they can remove those fears, so that you can be able to get the story out and be able to help them get them considered not guilty.
I've represented several doctors over the years. I represent 2 right now, as a matter of fact. And I mentioned to you before that I represented the chief medical officer in the VA in Fayetteville.
Right.
There's a big national news story there where he wasn't alleged to have done anything wrong, but one of his underling doctors was.
Right.
And if they were going to indict him on federal charges, it turned out he didn't actually do anything wrong, and they didn't. Right. But that was there's pretty high stakes stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I wanted the people to know about, because I'm reading, I'm like, man, this guy's not the same guy I knew in middle school and high school. He's doing some really great things and impacting the community. And
are you saying I wasn't doing great things at Pine Street, Jeremy? Is that what you're trying to say?
You're doing even better things. We talked about your stellar tennis career.
I was a pretty good tennis player on a very good team.
Right.
So, yeah,
you guys were good.
Yeah.
The girls team, the ladies team, you guys were really good. And that's one of the things
our team record was good. And I don't know that I was willing to admit it at the time, but I'll tell you now that the girls team kind of carried us a lot. They were very good. And then we were pretty good. We didn't have like a star player, but we were really deep and very good as a team. But the girls team did their job more than we did, I think.
Yeah, they were awesome. They were awesome, man. Yeah. I remember. I think even in middle school, I was in tennis for like a semester. I think it might have been 6th grade.
Well,
those cold tennis courts at Pine Street at the morning time.
They were asphalt. It was an old asphalt parking lot, so it wasn't a tennis court. So the ball would hit, and it would go every different direction. We didn't have the fancy stuff like those Westline kids had.
Yeah, Westline. Yeah. They always dug it in as all the great things they had. All right, we always were better.
And Coach Watson was legendary high school tennis coach in the state of Texas, which is saying a lot. That's a big place. And so I was very fortunate to be able to have a coach like that. And, and not to get off on a tennis tangent, but I think it's important. A kid like me would have never played tennis.
Right.
If it weren't for the public school program, because tennis is a country club sport. Right. But we had Texas High had this tennis team because he would get these kids early on, that would never have been exposed to that before, and then he always had this great teams year after year after year, and that was because of him and the public. I mean, I just don't think too many public schools have a tennis program like that.
No, and he had it geared towards like the football coaches will go in and tap into those players that he saw the potential and talent in tennis, like they did in the football realm, and those kids were able to stay and grow and build from those programs. Whether you at Pine Street or West Lawn, and you end up merging together in ninth grade, that you get those fundamentals in place. And a lot of those fundamental skills that we learn from the coaches and from our sponsors through the student council thing, I think those things are some of the things that were ingrained into us that we're now being able to take and utilize within our careers. And so a lot of times I'm sitting back and I'm doing something and I'm going about, might be writing a assessment if someone's approved or not, and I'm tapping into what Ms. Baker might have told us, or Miss Thornton in English class, or even like you said, Mr. Lippman in his psychology and sociology classes that I was in. Some things that they were always imparting to us. I think those things are now being spilled over into the careers that we have. And so when you think about your career, you've been at the state level as a public defender, district attorney. Now you're doing criminal law. What are some of the things or some of the ways you see, or if there are any, where the criminal justice system can be improved, or some of the innovations or new laws that are coming about that can show improvement in the criminal justice system?
Well, first, I was never a public defender, but I was a prosecutor, and then I went into private practice. Public defenders have a tough job, though.
Right.
Those guys and girls have a tough job. So, oh man, how long you have? I mean, you want me to tell you what's wrong with the justice system? Because, I could go on for a while about that. Well, okay, a few things. You talked about I used to do more of it than I do now, go around and kind of teach class, and I do some of it for law enforcement to this day, interrogations, investigations, and Fourth Amendment stuff, and like how not to violate people's rights and stuff like that.
Right.
And so I think it's the best. I think the America's justice system, as best I can tell, is the best one in the world, but it has a lot of flaws, including just plain equity. There's not a lot of equity in the system.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, and if I'm being intellectually honest about it, I guess I could say I'm part of the problem because I charge for my services. Okay.
Right.
But it is true that it shouldn't be this way, but it is true sometimes that the more resources you have, the better off you may end up. And that's just the bottom line.
Yeah, that's most of anything.
If you can afford whatever lawyer you want and all that, it is helpful. If it wasn't helpful, I wouldn't have a job.
Right.
If the public defenders were able and capable of handling every case, then people like me wouldn't have a job. So they do really hard, important work, but they're usually overworked and underpaid a lot of times. Now, that doesn't mean some of them don't do a great job.
Right.
But, they're definitely not going to have the same amount of time to spend personally invest in the client and stuff like that.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in the system. If you're poor, you can get arrested for some nonsense misdemeanor and not be able to pay your fine.
Right.
So what do you do then? You avoid it.
Right.
And then that little, let's call it $100 fine, turns into $1,000, and turns into $3,000, and then you're avoiding even more. And it can be a vicious cycle for people. So I'd say that's the biggest problem in our justice system is there's not always a lot of equity in the system.
Right. I appreciate you for your candid honesty because, without anything, I know you say you might be part of the problem because you charge, but you're doing a value need to people when they need to get help to see that they may not be guilty of a crime that they're being accused of. So you're doing a value job. So when you look at, again, you've been a prosecutor, you're now in your own practice. How many people do you have working with you, alongside you, for as attorneys and staff?
So I do nothing but criminal defense, and
Okay.
I own my firm solely, but the firm does a lot of stuff. I just
Right.
have other people that know what they're doing in those areas.
Right.
Okay. So I have two people now that do just domestic relations. So family
Okay.
law, custody, and all that stuff. And then I have another associate who does basically just stuff for me mostly. A younger guy, brilliant kid. I call him a kid. He's not a kid. To me, he's a kid. And that helps me. Some of these federal cases I get involved in may have 5 million documents or something crazy, right? You have to be able to process that stuff. And
Right.
so, and I'm a slow reader, so I can't do it myself.
Right.
But so there, and then I have some staff here, and I've had some other lawyers that have worked here for over 10 years that have left, and so there's not much turnover here. I think because I'm too busy to be pain in the ass boss. I don't have time for that. I have my own stuff to do.
Right.
So right now, there is 5 lawyers and 3 or 4 staff. But I really have an office manager who helps run my office, and a lady that works our reception and our front desk. And then I have, and she worked in the prison system for years down in Pine Bluff. She
Okay.
worked down there forever. And then I have people that do domestic stuff. And then all I do is criminal because
Got it.
it's all I know. And I don't want to learn anything else. I'm too old.
Right. And that kind of ties into my next question. Like, you've been in the prosecutor's office, you're now your own. Any ambitions for maybe a judgeship or going into that realm?
No, I've had some opportunities to do some stuff like that. And I don't want, I used to fill in. They've changed the rules now where used to, if a judge was sick or something, they could just call you that morning and say, "Hey, will you fill in for me?" And I used to do it quite a bit.
Right.
Um, and it's boring, man.
Is
You
it?
sit up there and they run them through there like cattle and they plead, and I just found it kind of monotonous.
Right.
So it is a little bit, it's pretty boring, to be honest with you. So my days are, whether I like it or not, pretty exciting. I never know what's going to happen when I show up to work. I mean, I think I have my day planned out. I'm going to work on this or that or the other, but then something crazy comes in and, you just deal with it.
Yeah, it's the same with me with my profession. I do a lot of administrative stuff now, but when I get a chance to get out there,
Hmm.
work with the veterans and work with counselors,
Yeah.
I love it because I get to go out and mingle but see, I can do the paperwork, but and it's the most boring, monotonous thing that I can do. I have to do in my profession.
I
So,
know myself. I get bored too easy. I would miss the
right.
excitement of it. It's all I've been doing for 20 plus years, and I just don't think I could go backwards.
Yeah, that's why I tell people. People are like they're not. I'm like, I've been in the office. I go in the office. I go in the office every day. So I don't.
Yeah.
It's not going to be an issue for me with returning because I've been in the office from when I was in my
Mhm.
New Orleans region. I was going to I was at Barksdale. I was at Belle Chase in New Orleans. I was at Fort Johnson going to meet with the service members. I love that because I can't sit at home. I need to be out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I go to court quite a bit, not as much as I used to. I used to be in court almost every day. I really handle less cases now and bigger cases. Um, and so I don't go to court as much, but still a couple of days a week, usually.
Okay. Okay. Man, I really appreciate your time and everything that you're coming on. If there's anything, and you got to send me information when your podcast drop, because I'm really interested in criminal justice and law, and I'm really interested in tapping into your podcast. But is there anything else you want to impart to our Texarkana residents that are watching, that will watch on the replays about you and your profession and how Texarkana helps shape who you are?
Well, you asked me to be on this thing, which I was really appreciative of you doing
Right.
that and thinking of me. But I was thinking that made me think about other people in our class. And man, because we graduated 95, we've just had a lot of people do some neat things just off the top of my head that I could think of. And
Right.
that's not even the stuff I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I remember being in junior high at Robert Phillips' house, and he had
Right.
little planes and helicopters and model ones hanging from his ceiling. That's what he does now. He's in the Army flying helicopters, has been for years. Like he did what he wanted to do,
Yeah.
Um, I mean, obviously we talked about Craig Monroe a little bit beforehand. It's kind of hard not to mention him. He's done pretty well for himself, you
Yeah,
know.
he's doing wonderful. I got to catch up with him. He's always, I see him on TV from time to time, and I'm really proud of him.
Yeah.
Last time I saw him was at the reunion, our last reunion. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that it's pretty neat how far people have spread their wings and things
Right.
everybody's done. I mean, I bet you there's people in, I wonder how many states doing stuff.
It's a lot. That's why I'm trying to tap into them and kind of get them on. And we still have several administrators and teachers around. I think they'll get a joy out of seeing some of their students that are out there doing good things. I always end up following Mr. Moore when I come in town. I'll connect with him or I see him someplace. But it was really good seeing you and looking at the things that you're doing to be able to highlight that. So that's one of the things that if you're out there, people, if you're following us or you're just jumping on, this season is going to be about that. Not just looking at all the great things that the people that are local that are still doing, but the people that grew up here in Texarkana that are branched out across the country, doing great things. So we're going to be able to highlight that and showcase that this season. When I get home, I'm going to be able to tap in some of the new restaurants that's there so I can highlight those as part of our Food is Love TXK segment. But again, Shane, I really appreciate you for coming on. I'll replay this again over the weekend. I'll send you updated copies so you can update to your files. But again, man, we had a lot of folks jumping on our Facebook page, excited that you're going to be coming on. So that's the first place I'm going to post the replay so people can tap in and see. And hopefully we can pull some of those people out of the woodwork that we can get them on the show and get them to talk.
Yeah, I'll send you a list of people I've thought of. I mean, there's a lot of people that could do it. And, you know, it's supposed to be, I don't know who somebody's going to put it together, but we should have a 30th reunion this year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. If they do it, I'll be there, man. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone.
Yeah, I'm going to try myself. So,
all right, Shane, I appreciate your time. As always, what's your TXK state of mind? Thank you, and join us next week.